Hello, welcome back to this session of our world today. This is a platform which I want to use to be able to address modern day problems of our time through a Christian lens, through a psychological lens, and through a sociological lens, looking at problems holistically so that we gain clarity on why we are where we are and how we can move forward. So today I'll be looking at marriages, and it is not a secret that marriage is on the decline. Divorces are on the uprise, and I thought it necessary to look deeper into the topic of marriage and to see what has changed over the time span. And today I'll be looking at marriage through a historical lens. Why the breakdown? Why the breakdown? Now, in Genesis chapter 1, we see God creates the institution of marriage. He puts Adam, one man, and Eve, one woman, together in this union called marriage. It's important to note that God could have created children and thrown it into the mix, but God knew that time and space was needed for Adam and Eve to truly bond and become one. For the Bible says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one. So God knew that time and space was needed for Adam to truly know his wife, truly understand her, for them to understand their weaknesses and their strengths, and truly know who they were as individuals. And this is very important because it takes a different skill set to be a good husband than it takes to be a good father. So you could be an excellent mother to your kids, but you could be a poor wife to your husband. You could be excellent at your job. You could be the best in your business, but you could be a poor husband. And that's why I remember when I was growing up, most of my friends wanted to get married to pastors or people who are leaders, spiritual leaders. And automatically the translation was, if you are a spiritual leader or if you are a pastor or a man of God, it translates directly into you being a good husband. But that is not the case, because it takes a different skill set to be a good pastor or a good leader and it takes a different skill set to be a good husband to your wife, because everybody's different. Everybody's different, and different people would require different things. So it's important to note here that we invest so much time in pursuing careers to be the best in our careers, the best at what we do, the best cook and the best mother, but we do not invest enough time and resources and knowledge in understanding the opposite gender and what it takes to be a good wife and a good husband. And that's why I hope that this endeavor will bridge the gaps and bring understanding and bring a wealth of knowledge and help us to move forward where there are challenges in our relationships. Now, when we look at time past, when we go back into history and we look at the 1400s and the 1500s, people lived for about 40 years. The lifespan of people began to increase by a decade. So by the 1700s, people were living up to 60 years. And this is because of diseases and things and medical issues that would come and cut off the lifespan of people. Women died in childbirth, men died in the workplace, and there were diseases that just cut short the lives of people. So when people got married in these generations, they got married maybe in their 20s, and they were married for 20 years, 30 years, maybe 40 years, God willing, because the lifespan was shorter. So when people entered into monogamy, they knew they were going to be with one person for a lifetime. But today, monogamy is one person at a time. And in those days, it took a village and a community to sustain a marriage relationship. Therefore, the community brought enrichment into that marriage union. But these days, we have strayed away from community living. We have strayed away from a village raising a child and a village supporting a marriage union. And today we seek the one and only, the soulmate, the one, the person that we seek. What we seek in a person, we used to seek in the divine, in God. Now we seek in a person, in a human being. We seek all the things that used to come from the community, from the village. So you find a person and you tell them, give me predictability, but give me surprise. Give me connection, but give me separateness. Give me togetherness, but give me autonomy. Give me comfort, but give me edge. Give me novelty, but give me familiarity. And in this one person, you want to be able to have a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, a sense of transcendence, a sense of well-being. And you want this person to be your intellectual equal, your economic equal, your best friend, your confidant, your passionate lover, your all in all. And when we look at the expectations, the unprecedented expectations that are put on one person today, we understand that these expectations become irrational. And with this irrationality brings pressure that causes a lot of people to crumble. So we have strayed away from the model, the, the old model that used to support the marriage unit, and into this new model now that becomes audaciously, extravagantly demanding. And what we used to access in the realm of the divine, we now seek in a mortal being. So expectations have increased in our time compared to marriage in the old lens. And that's why we see that the divorce stats have increased. And if we look at divorce.com in the Western world, 40 to 50% of married couples file for divorce. Most marriages last 10 to 12 years. Year 4 to 8 years is the most crucial, and that's when most divorces take place. Married couples between the ages of 20 and 25 are 60% more likely to divorce. Second marriages are 60% more likely to end. Third marriages are 73% more likely to end. And it's shocking to know that Black women, the divorce rate for Black women are higher than any other ethnic group, with 38.9% of women filing for divorce. It's also interesting to note that more women than men file for divorce. Baby boomers have the highest divorce rates, and divorce rates are higher in economies where the GNI is highest, which is the gross national income. In other words, the economy of the country is booming. That's where divorces are higher. Therefore, when we look at these stats, we see that marriage used to be an economic institution. It was for succession, it was for posterity, it was for status. Men depended on women for children, and women depended on men for economic survival. Therefore, marriage was clearly codified. There were clear written rules, and everybody knew their place. Men knew their place. Men knew their rights, and women also knew their place. There was no debate as to who would get up and feed the baby in the night. There was no debate as to whose job was most important and who would bring in the finances. There was no debate as to who set the rules in the house. There was no debate as to who had power in the bedroom. So these laws were clearly written, and therefore expectations were already set and expectations were followed through. But come the 1960s, where contraception comes into play, where women now have the autonomy for their fertility and they can control their own fertility, we then begin to see a decline in marriage, and we there begin to see an increase in divorce. Why? Because with the ability to control their fertility, women could decide if they wanted to go to work. Women could decide if they wanted to go to university. Women could decide how many kids they wanted to have. And with that level of control came an empowerment that allowed women to pursue economic freedom. And with economic freedom came the ability to no longer rely and depend on a man for sustenance. And it's important to note that marriage has changed from the days of Adam, Abraham, to the days of the 1400s, 1700s. Marriage has drastically changed. And the greatest factor of change here has been the woman. It has been the empowerment of the female gender. With this change has come a lot of problems. And I will not say the problems are bad, because things can only get better with time. But I will say that there's become a shift in the power dynamics, and there's become a shift in the economic landscape. And this shift is where we need a new understanding and a new comprehension of how to make this thing work in the face of a new age and the face of of our modern times. So marriage has drastically changed in the last 60 and 70 years. And it's important to note that most people come into marriages with a model from their homes. Now, you come into a marriage modeling how your mother treated your father, or modeling how your father treated your mother. The early childhood years and the nature nurture landscapes form a blueprint in the minds of people in terms of how they are to behave in a marriage. And it's important to know that times have changed in between these generations, and expectations have changed with the coming of the internet and the social media. And I will get into all of this consequentially. There has been a shift in how people think and how people act and people's expectations. The key word here is expectations have changed. And I'll be back to talk about these expectations. I'll be back to talk about, there's lots of things to talk about here in terms of things that need to be looked at: gender roles, marriage and gender role gaps, love, how the concept of love has changed through time, sex unmasking, sex desire in long-term relationships, nature nurture, the influence of early childhood years and cultural landscapes, money matters, finances and security in marriage, faith, the role of faith in marriages, social media, the influence of the tech generation in marriages, and the state of affairs. There is so much to talk about. Stay tuned. I will be back with more. You cannot afford to miss this. Comment. Let's have a discussion. Share your thoughts. Share your ideas. We're here all to grow and learn together. God bless you.